Welcome back to In Focus Kentucky. On this episode, we're focusing on the possible takeover of the Jefferson County public school system by the state of Kentucky and the possible ramifications if that does take place. Joining me now to discuss this issue is Kentucky State Representative Jason Nemeth, who represents the 33rd District, which covers portions of Jefferson and Oldham counties. And back in May of this year, Representative Nemeth co-authored an op-ed titled State Takeover of JCPS Unnecessary. Thanks so much for joining us here on In Focus Kentucky.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's start right off the top with this op-ed that essentially you were saying you wanted to stick with the leadership at the top of the JCPS. So explain why.
Well, a lot has changed since the audit came out, or since the audit began. We have new school board members. We have a new superintendent who I think is doing an excellent job. And so we don't think it's necessary for the state to come in. I do want to say something, and I want to say it very strongly. We are not, Senator Adams, Representative Carney, and I are not in any way supporting status quo. The very first paragraph of our op-ed said there are things that are going on in JCPS that are unacceptable. The status quo is not acceptable. The question is how to address the problems. We believe the way to address the problems is with our locally elected officials, our school board, and most importantly with our superintendent, Marty Pollio, who is new, been there nearly a year, a little under a year, and has done terrific things. Everyone agrees with that. The new Commissioner of Education, Wayne Lewis, Governor Bevin, all the folks in Louisville, all agree, and they've all said publicly, that Marty Pollio is doing a good job. So our op-ed was saying, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. We've got problems, but we don't need a state takeover. What we need is state assistance. The statutes allow takeover or state assistance. That's what we need. It's not suggestion. It's a strong hand from Frankfort to come to Louisville and help us out, but it's not to take us over. And that's what our op-ed was all about.
And what are some of the strengths of Superintendent Pollio that have you in full support of his leadership?
Well, he's tough. And he's done it. I mean, he was a principal at J-Town High School and also at Doss High School. J-Town is in the east end of Louisville, and Doss is in the south end of Louisville, near where I grew up. I've had two brothers that graduated from Doss High School. I know what Doss High School is all about. It's a tough school, and he did a wonderful job as the principal there. So he has a track record of turning schools around, and that's what we need in the whole school district. So he's coming in there. He doesn't have anybody that he has to please. He doesn't have anybody that he's wed to or that he's obligated to. He's coming in doing the best that he can and what he thinks is right. He has his own children in JCPS. And so I believe in Marty Pollio, and I think he'll be a wonderful superintendent and improve our school system.
Now, I know that you have moved to file a bill to limit state takeover in other school districts, so explain that to us.
Well, so I start from the proposition that the answer to very few questions is more Frankfort. Some questions, yes, that's right, but the very few questions is more Frankfort. And when the answer to the question is more Frankfort, we need to know a plan. Right now, there is no plan from the Commissioner of Education. And let me say that Dr. Lewis, the new Commissioner of Education, is someone that I have a great deal of respect for. I believe in him. I think he'll do wonderful things. We strongly disagree on this issue, but I really have a lot of confidence in what he's going to do for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But what my bill does, it's in the process of drafting now, is it puts some meat on the bones, if you will. It says, if we're going to have a takeover, here are the things that must happen. There has to be significant financial problems, there has to be pervasive criminal activity, or there has to be an attempt to have state assistance that doesn't work. Then you can go to state takeover. That's what I want for my school system in Jefferson County. That's what our teachers want, and the parents that I've talked to, that's what they want as well. There are a lot of parents I talk to that say, look, we've got people talking all over the place, but my kids are in JCPS, and I believe that they're getting a good education. And those parents aren't being heard from. Their voice isn't being heard, isn't being amplified. And so it's not as simple as take over or not take over. Terrible things are going on in JCPS, as they are everywhere, and especially an institution as big as JCPS, but takeover is just not the right way forward at this point.
And are you looking to get bipartisan support on this particular bill that you're drafting?
Yes. You know, the op-ed was put together by a senator from Louisville, Republican senator, and a Republican who's the head of the Education Committee from out in central Kentucky. And so I've talked with a number of Republicans who are on board, a number of Democrats who are on board. This is not a partisan issue at all, in my estimation. This is and from who I talked with, we need to come together and resolve this very, very big problem that we have. And partisanship will only make the problem worse. And so I don't think it's a partisan issue. I don't see it that way.
Well, Representative, we appreciate you talking with us about this hot topic that is happening specifically over in Jefferson County, but throughout the state of Kentucky as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, coming up, we'll have analysis of the takeover from the Louisville Courier-Journal's education reporter, Mandy McLaren, who has covered this controversial issue since it first started. Stay with us. You're watching In Focus Kentucky.